Greg, I think you could have a unique perspective on this. Mike Gesicki, tight end, listed as a tight end for the Miami Dolphins, looks like a tight end, is built like a tight end. He gets tagged as a tight end. He wants to be tagged as a wide receiver for wide receiver money. He lines up in the slot more than anything else. How do you feel about guys who want to be tagged, obviously for wide receiver money, but they're listed, act like a tight end?
I think so. It's really interesting you say that. So this whole conversation started years back with Jimmy Graham. So when he was in New Orleans and they slapped the tag, he appealed it and he challenged it. And I'll never forget the NFL. So all tight ends, we were rooting for him to win, right? Yeah. And the NFL came out with this like arbitrary designation where you're considered a tight end if you, I think it was like 4 yards or maybe 3 yards. I don't remember the exact number, but they came up with some arbitrary number where they said, well, as long as he's aligned within, I think it was 3 or 4 yards from the tackle, we're going to consider that a tight end. And I remember at the time, this was probably back in like 2014, 15, maybe somewhere around there. I remember at the time thinking, why not 2 yards? Why not 8 yards? Why, like, what an arbitrary number to just like pull out of thin air. And now here, all these years later, we've never really figured out what that designation means. So if I'm Gesicki, I'm fighting like hell too. You know, the difference in the two numbers is significant. And why should we allow a 4 yard? I would love someone to explain to me why 4 yards is the number. It's just an arbitrary alignment. I can't imagine it's based on any sort of formation pattern or any sort of, and over the course of my career, I would line up 4 yards, 2 yards, 1 yard, 10 yards. It was irrelevant to the formation. A lot of it was just based on where the defensive end aligned, where the linebacker aligned. Sometimes I'd want to be further from the tackle to help get a release. Sometimes I'd want to be closer to the tackle so like there was no real differentiation between the formation and how far you align from the tackle. That was the NFL's way of obviously sticking it to Jimmy and keeping him as a tight end. But I hope Gesicki wins it. I think it's bizarre in its own right that tight ends don't get paid. If your production is like a wide receiver, why, based on what's listed in the program and what's listed on the roster, instead of it saying WR, it says TE? Who cares?
Yeah. Well,
if you have 1,000 yards or you have where are you in the production of pass receivers? That's where you should get paid.
Yeah, and we all, by the way, Fantasyland, we want him to get paid. Real life, the NFL ain't going to let it happen because once that happens, it becomes an entire. Was that a part of Tight End University, by the way? I think that was.
We didn't talk to you about that when we did the pre.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. I was actually promoting pretty heavily.
T-shirt and everything.
Yeah, I was actually pretty excited about it. But I felt like that was a big time. You guys were all kind of looking out for each other, but also business-wise. Like I feel like a lot of that happened behind the scenes. Is that right? Did you guys kind of chat with each other about business and like kind of forming each other? Because you're in a position that is more important now than it's ever been. It has evolved completely into a much more hybrid wide receiver, not really blocking. I mean, you have to block. You're expected to block. But on offenses, especially now, you are a receiver. You're a dual threat receiver. You should be getting paid more. Was that a part of the Tight End University conversation? And how do you think that pans out?
I think it was. I think all along you always need a certain guys to reset the bar. You know, we joked about it before with the broadcasting stuff, but you need someone to kind of break through the ceiling to reestablish that mark. And for so long, the position kind of lagged behind. And a lot of that was due to where guys get drafted at the position. And when certain guys like Gonzalez and Witten, they dominate for so long, it's very hard to justify someone being paid more than them. So then the salaries kind of flatline. But then all of a sudden, Kittle and Kelsey broke through, and now you see everybody's starting to come up. I mean, you know, you saw the reports that Njoku up in the Browns has been offered $12-13 million a year. I mean, a couple of years ago that number would be insane. But now all of a sudden Kelsey and Kittle are making 15, 16.
Hey, let's go. That's good news. Yeah.
I love it, right? I love it for the tight end. So yeah, I mean, at the TU part, you know, not so much about like, hey guys, hold out. We weren't really like colluding to improve the contracts, but there was like a sharing of information and a sharing of appreciation that like, hey, this is a really sought after position. This is a position that if you continue to build your craft and you continue to expand what tools you have and what you can bring to the offense, there's no mystery that the best offenses all have a legitimate guy playing tight end. That's not a coincidence. These offensive coordinators are trying to find these guys. The reality is it's just hard. There's a lot put on your plate. And guys who can do it and guys that can produce at a high level, sort of like a wide receiver, but then also do more of some of the inline physical, inline run game, pass protection stuff. They bring a lot of value to an offense. And finally, since the Kittles and the Kelseys have kind of broken through that ceiling, you can see that the salaries and everything, that the franchise tag now is finally over $10 million for a long time. And it was the lowest other than maybe kicker, punter, no offense.
Yeah, I got franchise tag. It was low.
But you know what I mean? So like it's finally starting to move up the ladder a little bit. And as a guy who played it and believes strongly in its value, I'm happy for these guys.
Yeah, and you're born to be a tight end too. They're all freak shows.
Yeah.
All the tight ends are freak shows, just like you, Greg.